How much do I love this city? I live for the city. I fight for the city. I am this city. I like to say I'm from uptown, baby. And I throw my X up for BX. I have advocated both El Barrio and the Bronx. I have been working on BronxNet television for the past 15 years, serving as an essential on-air television personality, providing information for our local communities. El Barrio, when I was growing up, was primarily, Latino and Black. But now there's so much more. I mean, everybody that we've been capturing, like what in Spanish, what we would call a sancocho. It's a sancocho. And the beauty of sancocho is that it's different flavors. And I mean, what's better than that? Right? I mean, I don't know about you, but I love flavor. I identify as an artist because I do character acting, and I do a lot of writing, and I do theater. Well, when, theater was open. I'm also an arts advocate, and I am a strong arts advocate, and it has been my absolute pleasure to serve our artists this past year throughout this pandemic in providing a platform. My goal, even within my company, our mission is to marry artists with businesses. But I like working with small businesses. I like serving the underdog because I identify as an underdog. My daughter, she's 11. Her name is Charm Vida, and I named her deliberately because I believe in the power of affirmation. And so Charm Vida means charm life. So in essence, what I did deliberately is I established a name that would be chanted to her for the rest of her life that would declare how her life was going to be. I teach my daughter to make sure that whatever decisions are made are a contribution to her dream. So that it isn't like, oh, I'm just going to go get a job to make money. It's you have a vision, so how is this going to contribute to it? The beauty of being born and raised in New York is that you get to experience all these cultures in your upbringing. And so for me, I really never looked at a person based on their culture or their race or anything. I was raised with the belief system of like, we just deal with each other and treat each other as we want to be treated.
Beyond the initial grant, my first ever Citizens Committee for New York City gives us access to their vast network of key decision makers, city resources, and community organizing knowledge. Be a New Yorker for New York and donate today.
Good afternoon. I hope you're doing well. Welcome to Citizens Committee for New York City's Rethink and Rebuild conversation. We're so glad that you're joining us this month. So glad you've been joining us on this whole ride. We are in the midst of historic times where we need to come together. Citizens Committee for New York City, founded in 1975 during crisis, around the premise that average New Yorkers can come together to make a difference. And we are working to rethink, rebuild, and reimagine New York City, where everyone's at the table, opportunity for all is possible, and that we recognize help's not coming from the hills. It's when we come together that makes a difference. And right now, we're really excited that we're in this innovative campaign. It's the pandemic. You can't get together in person for a great gala. We've done those in the past, and we really look forward to a time when we can do that together again. But right now, we're in the midst of our New Yorkers for New York campaign. We've had New Yorkers for New York recognized at our past galas, but now we're taking it virtually, and we're doing it beyond just one wonderful night. We're doing a campaign that spanned over months, where we get to recognize these leaders who are fantastic, representing the best of New York City, the best of our communities, what we can do from an optimism standpoint, from thinking of the future, from an entrepreneurial and innovative standpoint, but also from a creative standpoint. And we're really excited that in this campaign that you can support us. Our New Yorkers for New York, we're looking to raise $1.5 million this year in this campaign. And we want to let you know that each gift that we receive for this next little bit is going to be matched 1-to-1 up to $150,000. So you should see a QR code that comes up on our website. Please go to it, support us, because by supporting us, you're reinvigorating communities around New York City. Don't believe the headlines. New York City is not dead. New York City is us. It's led by people who are staying around, and staying around is, yes, physical, but it's also mental. It's also recognizing that no matter where you are, you can support the idea of New York City, a diverse town with people of different backgrounds who come together to do something that's not done anywhere across the world. So today, we're so excited to feature one of our honorees, Rena Valentin, as the creative. She is our New Yorker for New York, the creative. She is nicknamed La Reina del Barrio, and Rena is a native New Yorker of Puerto Rican descent that is a television host focused on lifting human-centered stories with an eye towards fostering empathy, community, and bridge building. She's a beloved spokesperson for her community. She's making a mark in New York City's entertainment industry for her unique approach to advocating for and celebrating diversity. We are really excited to have her. I've known her for a little while. We met in my previous job that was diversifying media, and her voice and the soothing and the presence that she brings to the work is something that we need right now. And this conversation is going to be about healing. So we have a great panel featuring Rena and also Anthony, one of our creatives that's also doing work for justice. But I want to make sure that you recognize that movement comes with support. And so as we're also raising for the New Yorkers for New York campaign, we're also opening an application right now for the micro grants that we give out in community. So I want to let you know the application for our all-in neighborhood grants is available right now on our website. Tell everyone so they can get involved, and you can get up to $10,000 to support efforts that improve New York City, bring people together, and let them know that New York City is resilient. The next deadline is April 22nd, and I'm so glad to have Rena and Anthony here. This is amazing. Anthony's been a past grantee of ours, and we're just really excited about his work. And I really want to center this conversation right now in Rena, because you are our New Yorker for New York, the creative. Oh my gosh. I want to stop and take a breath because we need the healing. This moment, it's so deep. It is. There's so much going on right now in New York City, in the world. I mean, the pandemic has been going on for over a year. So I would love for you to start telling your story, and then talk to us a little bit about the story of healing.
So when you asked me to speak on behalf of my story, are you referring to this year in a pandemic story, or just me where I'm at in this pivot that we've all had to do?
So when I'm asking you that, because who you are is what you're taking in the midst of this pivot. So for me, it's both. Can you talk about, who you are? Because I gave a little bit of your bio, but I'd love for you to introduce the parts of you that you'd want to show us, and talk to us about like how that is showing up in the midst of where we are right now.
So I do identify as a mompreneur because I've had to really exercise balancing all of my roles. And while, as women, I think we are natural born multitaskers. This particular time period has really been a challenge. And I open as a mompreneur because I operate with everything revolving around my daughter, who is 11 years young. Her name is Charmvida, and I am a single mom. And having a co-worker in the house has been very interesting for the past year. And while she is doing blended, it has been a really interesting time in recognizing what we're made of. What we're made of, first and foremost. I know you asked me to talk about myself, but really, I feel as if though I represent a community, and so I'm of service. And in getting to know me, you would know that that's pretty much how I live my life. And so first, I'd like to say, if you don't know, I've been on air for approximately 15 years now, serving as an on-air, or I would like at this particular time, I refer to myself as an essential on-air television personality and communicator. And through BronxNet Television, I've been serving on their signature show platform, as I mentioned, for the past 15 years. It's called Open. And Open Friday has 3 different hosts. I'm the Friday host. In Monday and Wednesday have other hosts. Actually, they just implemented a Tuesday, but we pivoted in becoming Open BXRX. And as you can see, this is what I consider my remote studio.
And it's amazing. I mean, the energy that is emanating from that room is palpable, and you can see the art, you can see the creativity, and you can see the spirituality in it.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, because I was going to share that part of the reason that I made in my business to showcase so much art is some of these artists I supported throughout the pandemic. There were a lot of purchases that I made to help our fellow artists just pay for, living bills, just a phone bill, just those essential necessities. And so this is also my way of showing the beauty and the vibrancy that they contribute to just a space. So thank you for saying that, because aside from assisting and contributing and supporting them, I'm also showcasing the difference it makes. It makes a world of a difference in just bringing color into your world, my world. I mean, we're living in a Zoom world nowadays.
Can I say something to it really quickly? Because it made me think. I was watching 60 Minutes, and Darren Walker, who is the president of the Ford Foundation, he runs it. And he's on this perch of power, of philanthropy. And he looked around the artwork that was around the Ford Foundation, and he recognized he wanted to have more color and support different artists from different communities. And so in the 60 Minutes episode, they tell the story of how he sold the older pieces and then put up and bought and invested in art from people of color, and supporting their artistry in such a space as a platform. So what you said reminded me of that moment, that your support goes well beyond, I think, the beauty that you individually get, but you could really be uplifting a community by supporting the arts and supporting arts that aren't recognized otherwise. So thank you for doing that.
Yeah, I mean, and not only in this form, it comes in different platforms. I have a book, a coffee table book. That one was gifted to me, but it's by this author named Yasmin Hernandez, and it's called We Are Here. And the entire book is BIPOC and BIWOC individuals who wouldn't normally be documented in this beautiful coffee table book that I feel is like a collector's item. And so, I mean, I can drop names as we continue going, because what my goal has been is not only to invest in collecting art from our local artists and artisans, but to introduce them to people who wouldn't normally go online and shop through their Etsy store or directly to their website. I mean, we're living in an age where it's just a lot more convenient for people to go shop, at the A place, right? I'm not going to say the name because I don't want to plug them. We're all guilty of it. I'm guilty of it too. They made a lot of things very convenient, but by the same token, in the climate that we're in is pretty much virtual, and being a New Yorker, we're so used to just going out and experiencing everything, and possibly buying from the artisans that are just stationed outside in the street and they have their table out, or we attend festivals and there we have that accessible, we have the entertainment accessible, and we've been missing out on that for a year now, and everybody's had to pivot virtually, but the issue is that the advertising doesn't come with the local community. And so I've been serving almost as an advertiser to the best of my ability to make sure that people don't forget, like, okay, we're, semi shut down in a physical space, but we're still here. And so that's really what I've been really focusing on the entire year, not artists, artisans, small businesses. And I've done it in such creative ways that I've even got to I've even been offered the opportunity to exercise my craft as a character actor. So
please say that.
fun.
Please tell the story, because I love seeing you all over East Harlem. I love seeing banners with your picture on Fordham Road, like all over. I mean, so you've not only been an artist and a creative, and I do want to shout out really early when I got this job at Citizens Committee, I was on BronxNet talking to you about supporting barbers and hair salons and nail salons for folks that weren't getting that business in that moment. And you saw us and you saw our ability to support individuals in community, and you lifted that up. And I just want to thank you for making sure that we weren't invisible, because the support that we provide gets to that local level. And I want to tell how you're lifting up El Barrio and the Bronx with the different things that you're doing to support artists as a creative, and also pointing to neighborhood businesses.
Yeah, that was a really big deal at that time, because the hair salons and the barbers, they were almost like hopeless, right? Because that's a really close encounter with an individual, and we were already being mandated to stay 6 feet apart, right? And so I loved it. I enjoyed even participating in that campaign. I don't know if you recall, but I even included my daughter, and we did this cute little like a still motion storytelling to just enroll people into considering just providing or donating or contributing to them so that they can sustain their own environment, right? I remember that. So thank you for acknowledging that, but also thank you for also embracing my style. And I think that's why I feel most flattered and honored to be recognized as a New Yorker, a New Yorker for New York, as the creative, because a lot of my involvement and engagement has been with institutions, local institutions that trust my vision. And my vision is generally almost always out the box.
I can relate, because I'm kind of out the box from time to time myself. So I connect with you on that.
I know. That's why we understand each other. Because for me, it's like, okay, so there's, of course, the message that needs to get out. And of course, the importance of making sure that those details are provided. But the part that the artists serve in, or like myself as an artist, is in captivating the audience to even reconsider it or consider it at all. And so the institutions that I've partnered up with, such as el Museo del Barrio, Union Settlements Business Development Center, Casita Maria, of course, BronxNet, that's like my home, Bronx Council on the Arts, Metro Optics, which I serve as their eyewear ambassador, Fordham Road Bid. All of these institutions that I've partnered up with and I continue to have a relationship with has generally been based on the fact that they know that if they hand something to me, it's going to be returned with some unique outlook in engaging people to want to even consider whether it's, go get your eyes checked, or, Fordham Road is one of the largest like malls or urban malls in New York. New York itself is the Mecca capital of the world. I identify as a global citizen, just based on the fact that I live in New York, and we have every walk of life here in New York. And so I feel that it's our duty to make everybody aware of the fact that we can always find similarities in our differences. We can always find similarities in our differences. And that is where we are. And that's one of the things that I love so much about New York, is that we have our problems, we have our own dysfunctions, but they aren't as extreme as they are in the other states.
So really sitting with our diversity is our strength. It's not an impediment. Like me seeing you for who you are, and also how do you want to name yourself, I think gives me strength and reaffirms you and allows us to really connect on our similarities and connect on our interconnected humanity. And I think that is so great. And I think sometimes people think, you don't want to recognize difference and shy away from it, but I think you're leaving your strength behind. And I think having the mental fortitude and the strength to center things in yourself and your connection to others, I think is really important. And that's why I am so interested in transcendental meditation and how you've done mental health, and how in this moment, all of our mental health is under attack. The quiet terror of the pandemic is always around. So talk to me about how you've been spending time, like, I guess, exploring yourself and exploring the divine so you can connect better with the rest of the world.
So I've been a fervent practitioner for the past, I think we're on 6 now, right? Because I was saying 5 last year. I think we're on 6 this year. And I became, there's a ritual that you have to go through in order to attain your mantra, which is personalized to each individual. And I don't even really know how that particular style of meditation presented itself to me. I will say that I am also a Nichiren Daishonin Buddhist, so I do chant Nam-myoho Renge Kyo, and they don't conflict as far as my transcendental meditation. And so if I had to pin it down to what it serves in being probably my greatest tool in balance, is I in 2009 came public, producing a play and also receiving a proclamation from at the time Mayor Bloomberg's office, recognizing that I was a domestic violence survivor, and the domestic violence that I survived was psychological. And in all of the work that I've done in just getting to the root of my awareness, is that it really goes all the way back to my childhood. And there are things that occurred within my upbringing that became familiar to me that allowed me to end up in a certain situation. And so having done all that work, which as far as I'm concerned, we're all a work in progress, and I remain a work in progress. What I learned is that the repetition of thought is a hindrance, because it interferes with moving forward. It kind of like, it's almost like anchoring you down and back and holding you back. And until you get to it and you're able to clear it, not just sweep it under the carpet, but really clean it up, there's no room for anything else to present itself. And so learning these techniques, I came across transcendental meditation. And while it's not necessarily connected to that, the practice itself really is about transcending on a daily basis. And so when I started the practice, one of the first reactions I had was that my body was getting nauseous, because there's a purifying process that occurs as well. Right?
Releasing the toxins, releasing. So I've done Bikram yoga before, and you sweat it all out. Your mind, you're getting all of the negativity, all the things that are blocking your blessings out. So
correct. But you have to even become aware of the fact that this is not fluffy stuff, right? I call it fluffy because to some people it's like, oh, you're just gonna make everything go away with meditation. I'm like, you'd be surprised at how you visualize and then things just manifest themselves. Because when I'm in that state of meditation, I'm able to just visualize the files that are taking up the most space, and then it's a question of aligning them and figuring out where things belong so that it's not interfering with the direction that you're aiming in or aiming for.
Wow.
I know I'm speaking metaphorically.
No. So I want to say, because we're going to get to talk to you some more, but I just wanted to bring that into this conversation because Anthony Posada, who we're going to speak to, using art for justice. Within art, there's healing. We're in this moment of Dante Wright, of the Derek Chauvin trial. Just thinking about Dante Wright being pulled over makes me think of Sandra Bland being pulled over. I mean,
what about Caro Nazario, the
yes,
Army officer?
And talking about literally releasing the toxins and recognizing that there's something better on the other end. I think it comes through art. It's through healing. It's reaffirming each other, all of our different identities, binary, non-binary, Black, white, Asian, Native American, all of those things, because we're so much stronger together. And I'm so glad that you bring all of that, because you're just like, oh, it might be a little bit of conflict for me to be this and that. No, we need you to be all those things, because it'll let you know that you can reconcile a lot of things if you're trying to go towards a more perfect union, connecting to everyone's humanity. And I think, thank you for being that person. So we're going to have a Q&A. So we're going to bring you back, but this is so fantastic. Thank you so much.
Namaste.
Namaste. Muchísimas gracias.
De nada.
So as I said, this month we are celebrating 5 extraordinary women, our New Yorkers for New York. They're, again, all the different things that New York City is. Sometimes, just like Citizens Committee grantees, they are leaders and heroes that aren't necessarily visible to all, but they're really visible in their communities because they're making the difference and making the impact. We really need to raise $1.5 million because that's what we raised in the last gala right before I was hired to take this job. So our campaign needs to do that work. You can support us, support the stories, support the grantees, affirm our collective identity as New Yorkers, no matter where we might be physically right now, support the idea of New York and people being different. And if you don't have the money right now, like, spread the word. We all have time, talent, or treasure to share. And New York City cannot be defeated if we all step up and do what we need to. So you can go to the website, point your phone at the QR code so that we can make this possible. And I want to show you why this work matters. The Attica project, or Project Attica, is one of our grantees, and Anthony Posada was a recipient. We talked a lot about art. We talked about this moment. At this, we didn't explicitly say justice, but justice was alluded to. So I'd love for you to tell us your story and about your group. And, obviously, since we talk so much about art and healing and alluding to justice, talk to me about how those things come together through Project Attica.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me, Rashawn, and thank you for Citizens Committee for always supporting our work and for supporting communities across New York City, and making sure that we can have the resources to uplift each other. The story of Project Attica is very much connected to my personal story, in that I grew up with my father being incarcerated for 25 years in the US prison system. And what that meant was 25 years of visiting him different penitentiaries, It meant going through the rituals of having my abuelita and my aunts and my cousins making this trip that we would make every year to go visit him because he was out of state. It meant understanding sort of in my body what it was doing for a person to be in a cage, because what I've quickly realized was that not only was my father incarcerated and doing time, but the family as well was kind of doing that time with him. We were also enduring, not to the level that he was, but going through all the collateral consequences of sort of living with, okay, we can't see you after a certain time. We communicate through letters. The calls that we can have with you are limited and timed. And that is sort of the backdrop of the experience that I've had growing up. And then if I fast forward to when I was 17 here in New York in Jackson Heights, I was subjected to a very violent police encounter where two undercover detectives pointed their guns at my face. They threw me up against the wall. I didn't know what my rights were at that time, and I was really just concerned for my own safety. And going through that encounter and then also living with my father incarcerated were two experiences that were sort of forming a knot in my entire being, and I had to work to disentangle them. And that's where art really came into to save me and to rescue me, is what I would say, because I found in art, and what I started doing was creating t-shirts with social justice messages. And so the messages would be primarily about the US prison system, about police brutality, about injustices. And what I saw was that it was starting to give rise to conversations in spaces that otherwise weren't happening, like being very vocal about the message or actually wearing the message on me was sparking those conversations. And that's where the idea of forming Project Attica into a not-for-profit that was devoted to working with underserved communities to empower, to uplift, to generate solidarity about social justice issues that they were working on came to be. So our group is made of volunteers, we have activists, we have artists, we have people who are creatives in all different respects. And what we do is we bring this message of artivism to communities and allow for people to engage in the creative process by providing them the tools, the resources, and most importantly, by creating those spaces where people can create, where people can feel empowered and use art to express themselves in this format.
Amazing. So you said artivism. I want you to define it, and you gotta let us know where we can see the artivism. Where, is there an Instagram we can follow? Is there a website? What neighborhoods should we visit too that can be supportive of the local businesses by also go and see the art? Love for you to define artivism and then also let us know how we can be engaged.
Sure. So artivism, I don't take credit for coming up with the term itself. The term was out and about by the time that I started incorporating it more, but we have since then been very cool about it. And it's the combination of art and activism. So artivism can take on many, many shapes. It's really just using art and combining it with that other component of being activist. And so it can be visual, it can be musical, it can be theatrical. We have honed on for the last 10 years has been artivism through the means of what we're wearing. And so we've used artivism in shirts, in hoodies, in tote bags, and the way we sort of create the workshop and the spaces that we go is that we have this conversation and engage people on how are the different ways that art supports social justice movements, or that they have seen that art comes up. And then people start thinking and incorporating that message, but tying it into what it is that they're working on in that moment. And so, for example, if we're working with groups that are, let's say, when we were able to go into schools pre-pandemic, and let's say the schools were working on issues of bullying, or they wanted to uplift LGBTQ messages, or they wanted to let's say we were working with justice involved groups, whatever it is that the groups were working on, that's what the Artivism would take its form, or rather its beat from. People can find us at Instagram at Project Attica 33. That's our handle for where you can check us out and see a lot of the work that's been taking place for the last 10 years. And I have some here behind me. Previous examples, there's a board, and the story behind that board is that we were working with a group that wanted to highlight and uplift this issue that has to do with how they're being surveilled in their communities. And the board is actually like another layer of Artivism, because not only did we engage in a workshop where that t-shirt was created, and so now that person gets to wear it for a rally or a march or wherever they want to be sort of generating that conversation, but then turning it into an actual item that can now be hung or else is like the other layer of how far you can go with Artivism. And so it's been really wonderful to see all the different ways people who have come to our workshops have come back and told us, look, I was able to wear the shirt because I was going to a march, or thank you for making the shirt because I was able to uplift it at a community event that we had, and people were asking me, where did I make it? And it just brings me back to the roots of how I got started, which was, again, activating these conversations in the spaces that we're in. So if it's in our neighborhood, if it's on the train, if it's on the way to school or to work, what we have on us is spreading that message. And that's what we have always wanted to make sure people understand, that we are all artists in some way. And we just want to make sure that we can honor that by taking the tools and the resources for people to engage with that.
I love all of it. So Project Attica 33 is the IG handle. Am I messing that up? I got it right?
No, you got it right.
I'm pausing on it so folks don't get it wrong. I also want to make sure that people support giving people a voice. I think people who are able to be artistic and then be able to display it on their chest, on their back, and then have a conversation started. It's a thread from what I was talking to Rena about, which if people can center themselves in the way they feel and feel confident and then have a conversation with others about it, then you get a chance to connect with people's common humanity. They're not invisible. They're not frustrated. It's not necessarily about tearing people down. It's about allowing us all to evolve together to a greater space. And I think sometimes when you talk about differences, oh my gosh, they're protesting, but are the police going to feel attacked? Well, it's not about attacking the police. It's like, how do we all in community come together with our real grievances, with our real needs, with our real pains, but also our real aspirations, but figure out how we can all take that and move to a different place together. And art seems to be a fantastic place to express it and first try to get the emotions and the words to move forward. So thank you for all the work that you do. A lot of it's in the Bronx, right?
It's actually, we've done it citywide for the last 5 years, thankfully. We've been working with a lot of groups also that do public health work around gun violence eradication through New York City's crisis management system. And so working with those groups has also been incredible, because a lot of people might not know, but they are right now on the ground people who are not the police, who are working to reduce violence and gun violence in particular in their communities, and supporting those groups has been wonderful. And just to go back to something that you just mentioned, which is something that has always come across to us, is when I shared earlier, like having these knots or having this sense that was kind of in my being, this pressure and the experiences of my family, I very much sometimes felt alone, and I wasn't as vocal or as comfortable speaking about both of those things as I am now. But that's exactly what art helped me do. It helped not only in expressing it, but immediately that formed a bridge with others identify with that cause or that issue, to feel inspired to also talk about it. And if they happen to come to a workshop, definitely feel now more connected and feel heard and seen and appreciated. And so that's always been something that Artivism has always taught us for the past 10 years is how to connect and how to form those bridges, which art allows us to do with its transformative and healing power.
Amazing. So as we bring the full panel up, I want to recognize I was in a conversation about stopping hate against the Asian American Pacific Islander community. And one of the things that what you said struck me was there wasn't necessarily a voice from the AAPI community of protest or of raising the visibility of some of the issues that they've gone through. And what you said really concretized like an exercise that people can go through, that an entry point can be through art to start a conversation, because stopping Asian hate is an important conversation. And if people, we need to center it in the folks that are experiencing it. And if taking a moment through art for them to get their voice, then we can all participate together. Or taking a moment of healing within meditation so that we can move forward through strength and self-affirmed. That's so important. So there's so many issues that folks are going through, whether it's just surviving the pandemic to issues of violence to figuring how we could come together. But I think art and healing are definitely great tools so that we can get to where we want to be. So Paige, so glad to see you. This is my colleague, Paige. She is the best part about all of these Rethink and Rebuild. So you should come just to see her. So Paige, are there any questions that we have from the audience, or if not, like you'd like to ask us, you can.
No, I first just want to thank you both for just being vulnerable and for being authentic with us. I think that type of storytelling is what people need right now, and people really value. So thank you both for that. You know, I think it's interesting. There's so many movements happening right now. We have the pandemic alongside racial injustice, economic injustice. So I would love for you all to talk a little bit about what community-driven movements are happening right now in your neighborhood in particular.
So I could start. There's actually going to be a march. There's a march happening April 25th, and I have a flyer that I could submit to you. It's a Uptown March in solidarity with Asians in America. It's being organized by this committee that has practically almost every union as a union coalition, and it's going to be taking place Sunday, April 25th. It starts at 11 a.m. in Washington Heights and in Malcolm X, and it goes to 125th Street in Harlem, and I'm happy to share that flyer. And then in addition to that, as an on-air television personality, for the past month, I've been highlighting Asian work, Asian artists, the Asian American Arts Alliance. I've been giving them a voice and a platform to show, once again, our similarities, you know, despite our differences.
Yeah, what are you learning from those conversations?
Personally, that we really have a lot in common. I mean, I had a conversation with an artist recently. I was looking for her name because I knew you were going to ask me that, and because this was a couple of weeks ago. But forgive for not remembering her exact name, which hopefully I'll find it. But she is a graffiti artist, and she has this amazing movement going on downtown in Chinatown, where they're building these beautiful murals that are interactive so that people can go and photograph themselves to kind of help draw people down to Chinatown. But what she shared with me was that she took a trip to Puerto Rico, and she was embraced in Puerto Rico, and she didn't speak the language, and somehow she was able to navigate in Puerto Rico and find fellow artists, muralists, and she left her mark in Puerto Rico, in La Perla, no less. And La Perla is a rough part of town in Puerto Rico. And she shared that there's this game that they play. I don't remember the name of it, but it kind of looks like dominoes, and it's not exactly the same game, but it was just very fascinating to find the similarity in it, and also to just see how I'm Puerto Rican, so I'm going to speak up my cultura, how they just embraced her, and despite the language barriers, they found a way to just communicate and take her in, and now she left a mark in on the beautiful island of Puerto Rico. Just so I like the unity. I'm all about the unity. Like, let's forget about what we don't have in common. Let's find what we do have in common. And that's what I've been learning, is that commonality that we all share, in rather focusing on our humanity before our different racial color or skin color or our cultural differences.
I love that. I love that you gave that example because art, music really does have that special power. I mean, it's interesting to even see how sports have played a role in that more recently. Just stepping out against violence and speaking boldly and doing it in a format where everyone can come together and they're just kind of forced to listen and like take it in. So I'm glad that you shared that. Anthony, too, I'd be interested to know if you have any thoughts on that question. And even just looking to the next generation, I'm wondering if you're seeing movements in that sphere as well.
So community-driven movements definitely, once the pandemic hit, I've been working closely with communities in Corona, Queens. That was in fact highlighted or mentioned as another epicenter within the already epicenter of New York City. And about communities that are largely immigrant. They not necessarily speak English. And they all started really coming together and working to support and be there for one another. And I'm primarily talking about them working in food pantries and food banks. There's still a huge need in communities where people are hungry, where poverty is real. And so coming to the food banks and being able to have food banks around is super important. And so what we did was pivot to supporting the volunteers in those food banks, because it's one thing to know about the fact that the pantries are available and open to the community, but many people may not know who is actually making sure that those pantries are running, right? And sometimes it's the moms who don't have jobs at this time, who lost their jobs during the pandemic, but still take time during their day to be there for their community and to show up and to make sure that they're keeping their communities well fed and strong. And so that's been sort of a little area and angle that we've been really honing in on in the last couple of, I would say it's 6-7 months. But in terms of looking towards the next generation, this moment is to me just as important as the moment when we got started, in that we want to continue to promote and making sure that we're getting across to the youth that we're working with that their dreams matter, that their lives matter, that they are heard and recognized, and that we believe in them. And through Artivist workshops, it may be like a drop in an ocean, but it's still a drop that has ripples and that goes across. And that's something that art always helps us realize, is our interconnectedness. What I do here is definitely going to reach to somebody miles and miles away, probably even across the world. I may not see it, but it is going to have that effect. And so that's something that we would just uplift and make sure that we're mentioning to the next generation that's coming across. And also making sure that we're creating the spaces for them, because many of the youth and children that we have been working with have indoors for a whole year. And so just being able to come out to a space and to engage and to see their smiles has been incredible and very rewarding.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I would love for us to talk about healing a little bit in that same vein, just thinking about New York and how New York has evolved during the pandemic. It's like, you can't eat inside, so we'll set up in the streets, So just thinking about how New York will evolve. Would love for you guys to talk about what you envision for New York as we heal as a community.
So I want to shout out the artist that I couldn't remember her name.
Okay.
I dug through my files because I want to at least acknowledge her, and I want to encourage people to go visit Chinatown. Her name is Peach Tao, And the project that they have going on down there is called the Chinatown Mural Project. And what's beautiful about the pieces that she created is like she honors pigeons. You know, pigeons to me represent New York, but so she's got this fixation with animals and she brings them to life, and they're interactive and people can go and do selfies and it almost looks three-dimensional. It's pretty cool. It's really cool stuff. Really, really cool. So I wanted to make sure I shouted her out. And of course, you know, encourage people to go down to Chinatown and eat that authentic Chinese food. And so with regards to healing, yeah, that actually is a nice lead into healing. It's about us coming together and making it our business to support each other. As far as the healing that I volunteer doing, which is I've been volunteering in offering guided meditation throughout this entire pandemic for the past year. I offer guided, not transcendental, and I've been doing that through Instagram Live for the past year. And there was a time that I was doing it weekly. That was at the height of the pandemic. And what I found fascinating is that it really allowed us to be together, even though we were apart, in this energetic space of just being able to relate to our different outlook in whatever we were each dealing with, right? There were some who had family members who transitioned, obviously loss of job, lots of loss. And so being conscious of language and what we declare into the universe, we would shift the language so that it would move us forward or propel us in the direction of, okay, so I guess we can just restart. And that's pretty much where I feel we are. We're in this place of like, okay, so we have an opportunity we're going to reboot, but we're not going to go back to what we were. So how do we approach it with this fresh look? And really it starts from looking inside. And I think we've all had a lot of time to take a look deep down inside. And I think there's a different level of consciousness in which the entire city is going to reopen with.
What I would add to that as well is healing has to take place holistically. It has to address all parts of our being. So mind, body, and spirit. And when we talk about what New York City needs, it's echoing a lot of what Rashawn has been doing all throughout the segment, which is fun, doing some fundraising. We need to get resources into the communities that have been really impacted and severely hurt by the pandemic and continue now to deal with this onslaught of injustice. And so that healing, I hope to continue seeing many of the things that came about and blossomed during the pandemic, like open streets and more areas where community could actually come together to not go away or be taken or stripped as we come out of the pandemic, but actually cement them more into our daily lives of New York City. Because it was actually in a lot of those spaces last year that we were able to do some like pop-up artivism and show up and engage people like right there, because again people were just happy to be able to a space that before was just devoted to traffic to now have areas where they could build community. And so yes, I hope that continues to happen, but I'm also very aware that the healing will have to take a lot of unpacking of all the hurt and trauma that has been layered during the pandemic that people are still walking around with, and that's going to take some time. But as somebody also who practices and deeply believes in meditation and yoga and having a proper balance in our daily life, we try to incorporate some of that into our work, but we hope to see more and more of other groups and communities uplift and support similar work, so that the healing does engage all our different aspects of being.
It also changes the quality of life, right, Anthony? Because you approach everything with this really deep, profound mindfulness. And then we all treat each other differently. And I think that's where we need to pivot, right? You're speaking of the marginalized neighborhoods and the individuals, and so there's the shift of that mentality as well in the language of like, yes, these are the circumstances, but how do we shift it? It first begins with language, and so that is how we're going to transform it. But that language can't be shifted until there's that consciousness. And so it's not only, I agree with you with as far as the funding needing to come over here. And I say over here because I represent Uptown, so I'm Barrio in the Bronx. They're both my beloved neighborhoods, and I'm in the trenches. I'm in the trenches of seeing, I've advocated for NYCHA. I've been, the neighborhood refrigerators, the food banks. I've spoken to everybody. I've highlighted everybody. I've seen, the loss, the negligence. And so, and while I'm not saying that isn't valid, it's a matter of like, okay, yes, we're aware of that. So how do we move it? And it starts with our level of consciousness, mindfulness, and language.
I appreciate that commentary because we all need to hear that. Even if we know that, just having it reinforced is important and also really powerful. But speaking of resources, we actually have Councilmember Gibson who was able to join us. We're getting tight on time, but I do want to bring her up really quickly just to speak. Hi, Councilmember Gibson. Thanks for being here.
Hi, how are you? Hey, everyone. It's so good to see all of you. I'll be quick. I was just listening. I love and appreciate all of you. Citizens Committee, my sister Rena, thank you so much. Citizens NYC, you guys do great, great, great work. And I'm so proud to work with you as a council member. And I want to recognize Project Atticus and really all the amazing things we're doing. We have an opportunity this year to really make an impact post-COVID, recognizing that COVID was a setback for us in New York City, but a setback is preparation for a comeback. I want to have open streets, recreation, summer jobs, programs. I want it all because we've been traumatized the past year, and we have to give young people and families hope that better and brighter days lie ahead. Someone we know has been affected by COVID. We've been affected ourselves. And I really want to find a way to use this warm weather that is upon us as a way to return to some sense of normalcy, right? And I can't emphasize that enough because the programs we have in place, the budget we're about to pass in 2 months, we want to have more young people working. We want more summer programs. We want summer youth, Compass, Sonic, Beacon, Cornerstone. We want Saturday Night Lights. We want it all. And I'm energized because we can get it. And it's absolutely possible. We have to address gun violence and what's been going on with our young people. So the way we do that is giving young people jobs and opportunities. And so I appreciate all of you, the work you do, the grants that you provide to many of our community groups, whether we're cleaning up parks, gardens, the green thumbs. All of that is a part of our quality of life. And that's all a part of what we need to do. So I just wanted to come on and say thank you all. Thank you for the great work you're doing. Keep up the great work and know that you have partners and friends at the City Council that are standing with you, walking with you on this journey. Thank you so much, everyone.
Council Member Gibson, I was almost going to call you Reverend Gibson because you took us to church. Demand more. We can do it.
That's right.
I was like, I want to name my sermon. Don't get lost in the loss. There's something better on the other side. Let's do it.
That's right.
Because there is healing. Yes. There is opportunity. There is strength when we are together. Yes. And you said the resources are needed. So I want to be very clear. We have a rolling application. But if you get it in by April 22nd, el 22 de abril, then you will be considered in the next round. We just had a round. We're reviewing our first round. Get in for a second round. We need to raise the money so we can give more away. So get your application in early. Also, remember, if you got resources, support us. Like, hopefully, the City Council will come through for us. Hopefully, Albany come through us so that we can build New York City together. Thank you so much. We are all New Yorkers for New York if we show the love and give our time, talent, and treasure. Thank you so much for what you all do. Thank you, Anthony. Muchísimas gracias, Rena. Again, Councilmember Gibson and always Paige. You always have a family here, so come back and see us on Facebook, YouTube Live, or she's on Clubhouse 4:30 on Thursdays. And you can find us on all the social media that is below. Como dije antes, muchísimas gracias. Que Dios bendiga.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Namaste.
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 Gracias.